The word. Switch the bracelet on. The word. The word. The word. The word. Switch the bracelet on. The word. The word. The word. The word. Switch the bracelet on. The word. The word.
Good evening. Welcome along to the Word on Blake 7, and we are making our way through Series A. We've reached episode 10, and it is Breakdown. And as always, at the start of our podcast, I will give a breakdown of the episode. See what I did there? Great to have Neil, Nick, and Lynn, and our competent colleague with us. More on that later, I'm sure. Anyway, this episode, during a series of standard maneuvers, the limiter placed in Gan's brain begins to malfunction and he becomes unusually aggressive, assaulting members of the crew and using his enormous strength to attack the Liberator itself. He's eventually overpowered by the others, who then try to determine how and where they can obtain the skilled surgery required to repair the damage to Gan's limiter. Eventually, after much discussion, they decide to go to the Space Research Station XK-72, the location which Avon has already investigated as a possible place to go should he no longer be able to stay with Blake and the others on the Liberator. The station houses a famous neurosurgeon, Professor Kane, and it is to him that they hope to turn. However, in order to get to XK-72 in time, it is necessary to travel through an exceptionally dangerous zone of space. Zen refuses to fly the ship through this zone, and then the ship is taken through on manual control. Zen disengages all functions. This means that the ship gradually becomes more and more unstable, and since the computers are a central part of the Liberator's design system, Avon just manages to bypass Zen as they're about to be drawn in the very center of a gravitational vortex. With the computers back online, they fly through the center of the vortex and reach XK-72. Recognizing that the doctors on XK-72 are unlikely to help Blake if they realize that the Liberator is a ship full of criminals, they pretend to be a Federation ship on a practice run. Professor Kane, however, quickly divides what's going on. Despite being on a neutral space station, his sympathies towards law and order lead him to alert the Federation to Blake's whereabouts, and 3 pursuit ships are rapidly sent. With only 30 minutes to go, he begins the operation on Liberator, warning that the crew, that Gan, will die if they attempt to move out of range of the space station, since any vibration will affect the outcome of the operation. The operation is successfully completed with minutes to spare, and Kane and his assistant are transported back to XK-72 as the Liberator turns to make its escape. A furious argument breaks out on XK-72 concerning the legitimacy of Kane's notification of the Federation forces, and during the dispute, Kane strangles the station administrator, Farron. He then becomes so distraught at the destruction wrought by his own hands normally used to save life, that he sits helpless as a Federation plasma bolt deflected off the Liberator screen's approaches and destroys XK-72. That is from the Blake 7 Program Guide by Tony Atwood, and that is the episode that we are reviewing today. And as always, we have a selection of questions for the panel and get their views, and we get a mark out of 10 at the end of it. So, Neil, what did you make of this episode, this script, this storyline?
Yeah, there's a lot in it, to be honest, when you get under the bonnet of it. Putting an entire episode on the Liberator could have been a disaster, to be honest. But I think at this point in the series, when we're starting to get to know all the crew, or trying to, that it actually works quite well. And one of the strengths of this episode is the dialogue. And there's dialogue between a lot of different characters. So not just your usual people that you have working with each other. There's even the not the normal crew, even just the sub characters that come in. There's dialogue between them that is pretty good as well. So I think that works quite well, to be honest. Bit of universe building going on as well. 7 planets mentioned, including Kinesos, which we have in features heavily in the Vic Dickus novel. I just thrown that in there. But it's beginning to feel like the Blake 7 universe has considerable depth to it. So there's a lot of planets and there's a lot of different types of alliances within it. Beware of neutrality is a nice message that comes through, of course, because Kane emerges as being anything but, and is obviously a huge Federation follower. So not very neutral when he calls in the guards, so to speak. So all of that background, I think, works quite well, and I think there's a good subplot in this one as well with Avon, and he's considering whether he wants to very much stick around with the crew, considering whether there's a bolt hole. He obviously knows of XK72, as we saw the conversation on the Liberator. So you're wondering, has he been mulling things over in the back of his mind? Is he considering jumping to somewhere like that? And then there's a bit of a worrying thing with it for me as well. Gan without the limiter. When they do the scan, it looks a bit brutal, that thing in his head. But the way that he behaves, what if he didn't have that limiter? What exactly is Gan? What exactly would he be like as an individual without that limit?
He's not an actor.
and he needs to be restrained. And generally, when he is restrained, and particularly when he's trying to talk Callie around and letting him free, he's actually quite psychopathic. And I think there's a bit of a question about what this character is. Is he really a gentle giant? What's he really? I mean, we know he's killed someone, but how bad is it? So I think there's a bit of a question looming over there for me for that as well. And Villa's really good in this episode as well. And I'll come a little bit onto that later on. But his suspicions are frequently right. At the end, the trouble with a genius is you're never sure what they're up to, as Kane proved at the end. And the episode does quite well. We end up with a space fight scene at the end. It's a bit slow in the first 30 maybe, but then we get a bit of heroics from someone we didn't think from at the end as well. And I think it, a lot of dialogue worked well. I liked Avon getting angry at Zen. The old "you cannot reject a direct order" line. I really like that. He's getting ratty with the computer. And then, as I said, there's a lot of debates and a lot of dialogue between a lot of different characters. And the worst bit for me, unfortunately, and the bit that could have been improved, is Callie in this episode. Firstly, she's not in it very much at all. In the very beginning, when this restraining Gan, who's obviously gone totally ballistic, she's like, "Oh, don't do that, don't do that." What? He's about to kill everyone if you let him carry on. And then the pathetic reveal to Blake when she's released Gan as well from the restraints.
Yes.
She's so meek and apologetic, and we seem to have drifted so far away, a massive erosion of that original character that we met in Time Squad. And I think that's, that jerks me a bit. One last thing. They're trying to save Gan's life, yet they set the speed to XK72 as standard by 6.
Thanks for that.
To save his life! Just maximum speed, guys, get over here. That's me done. That's what I think.
Great stuff, as always, Neil. Great start. Nick, your feelings on this episode, the script, the overall storyline, and what do you think could have been improved?
I quite like it. It's certainly not one of my favourites. It's not one I'd sort of think, I'm going to watch breakdown. But it's enjoyable. It's more positive than negative. A lot of what Neil said there, in a million words, I was going to say in about 10. But but I also like the sort of the world building thing. I like the fact that there's this neutral facility set out in the middle of nowhere. A thing that did occur to us, though, was that Zen ultimately is a computer that's been built by an alien technology, and yet it knows the location of presumably Earth-built ship stuck out in the middle of the nowhere. It knows what it's called. How does he know that? How does Zen know that? Was my thought. I thought that what's he called? Renault was very badly scripted. He was like something straight out of a Carry On film with his innuendo.
Hello. No,
Yeah, exactly. Who was that? Was it Leslie Thomas that I used to say that? Wasn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, and he was that type of character. And apparently, I read that he was considered for the part of Blake, which seems
What?
seems quite bizarre.
Thank God.
It was a very studio-bound episode, obviously, which I imagine helped with Dave's favourite word, the B word. And what else did I put down on here? Yeah, there was no B plot as well, which I prefer that. I prefer a single line plot. I don't like it particularly when they veer off doing an A and B plot. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good episode. I enjoyed it, but it's not one of my favourites.
All right, okay. Dave, and for those regular viewers, they will know that Dave is not a Blake 7 fan. We've invited him on to try and persuade him that Blake 7 is the show for him. What was your views? What was your views on this episode, then, Dave?
Well, can I go back to doing care in the community instead of doing these podcasts? Oh God, yeah. We're just talking about this. Hang on. Oh.
I think we could all do it. See who does the best.
That's not me.
Oh, that's better.
Love it.
Well, Gan Goes Gaga is superficially the storyline, isn't it? But to me, the more interesting story, because I had to dig deep into this episode, because superficially it's rubbish. Gan can't have to save his life. But the interesting story for me was the story about Avon, and the fact that he finally learns that although he can't get on with Blake, and he doesn't like being ordered around by Blake, he does learn by the end of the episode that he can trust Blake. Blake's somebody he can trust. And he makes a decision to stay on board, doesn't he? So that was much more interesting than the MacGuffin, if you like, of Gan's limitator malfunctioning and making him an even worse actor than he was before. I mean, when you see Gan's performance, it's like, I don't know, a cross between Charles Lawton as Quasimodo, Carlos Frankenstein monster, and a bit of Scooby-Doo sound effects thrown in as well. So in terms of story, if we focus more on Avon, and the other thing about Avon, each episode is getting increasingly frustrated with Zen, and everybody thinks Zen's great, and he keeps saying he's only a computer, and he's getting more and more annoyed with Zen each episode, to the point this time, because Zen tells him he can't go somewhere, he decides he wants to go there. He's not really interested in saving Gan. He just wants to do something that Zen says he can't do. So in terms of storyline, the storyline that was interesting was Avon's. The Gan thing completely spoiled the episode. The acting was atrocious in that. And I'll keep me powder dry till we get to direction and other questions.
Okay. Bob, thanks for your comment. He says Gan would have been a better character if it wasn't for the writing for the character. So that's Bob, who's tuning in. Good evening to Kevin and
lack of writing, maybe.
Lack of writing, for certain characters. Yeah, I would agree. Lynn, your views on this episode, please.
Okay, so some of this covered already, but yeah, the breakdown of the whole thing. It's good to have a Gan focused episode, if we're being even-handed through everyone. It's a shame, or maybe it's not, given how he does it, that he's unconscious for much of it. Really a good thing. So that's fine. We've got a strong, apparently, main plot. The subplot, so Avon researching potential bolt holes, absolutely. It's consistent with what we know of him so far. I think we've got extra context for XK72, as well as just trying to find someone to save Gan. We've got some other interest there. The continued development of the Blake-Avon relationship, mentioned a couple of times here. You're right, Avon can trust him. I'm not sure he really likes the fact that he can, but he knows he can. Now we get to the bits. Basically, this episode made me annoyed. like constantly annoyed through it. And I was trying to work out why, because it's okay overall. It's a shame, given that I like the XK72 piece, it's a shame we only get there at least 30 minutes into the episode. And that's because we're faffing around with some magnetic anomaly in a prohibited space zone. We did this already in Mission to Destiny, some kind of jeopardy getting somewhere. They do it a lot in Star Trek and things like that. I just don't see the point. I don't think we needed to add it in terms of drama to the limiter malfunction. We could have done that a different way. Just spend a little bit longer getting there, something like that. I am the science bit. A magnetic anomaly needs a magnetic field. And apparently we're in empty space, so I don't know how that works. But we could have arrived at XK72 earlier, right? Maybe Blake would have needed to convince Kane, do a little bit more than turn up and say, here's a teleport bracelet. That would have been quite interesting. There could have been more of Avon politicking, working on the spot on the research station, maybe explaining some of the things he was going to do. But he says his bit at the start to Farron and then vanishes. So that annoyed me. The other point of annoyance, Neil's mentioned part of it, which was Callie. It's the treatment of the two women. So I can't add anything to what you said about Callie. I completely agree with all of that. It's ridiculous. Jenna, she's allowed to pilot the ship by Blake, except when she isn't. And he decides that he can do it better. It's like, leave it to me. Yeah, of course, why not? And when she's not piloting, then she gets to change her outfit and go and chat up Renor for some extra information. Apparently that's fine. So that irritated me as well. And I think those things got in the way for me of what I think is a pretty decent storyline, but those things just leapt out at me and spoiled it a bit.
Can understand that, and this is going to be a running theme, I think, as we get through even to Series D, as we hit the 80s, Lynn. Things don't get any better.
Oh man, they do not.
78.
Yeah, this is 78. Wait till you get to 81. It's even worse. But yeah, Maximum Power is back. If anybody who hasn't listened to that podcast, they are busy reviewing Series D in their own imitable way at the moment, and fascinating. I'm just catching up with a few of those episodes, but go and give them a subscription as well. I will give my little review on this. It's not my favorite episode, not by a long shot. It's probably the weakest, one of the weakest, I think, in Series A. However, it could have been really strong, much for the reasons that Lynn has pointed out, faffing on again in space when really the storyline didn't need all of that. It's destroyed really by David Jackson's overacting. That it could have been so much easier for him to just do, some violent scenes and instead of all of this punching to the face. And I mean, honestly, that really sums it up. It's awful. It's awful. It's just, I think it spoils it for everybody from Star Wars. This little bit here, which I highlighted, that is probably a really good bit of acting from David Jackson, where he's like, trying to convince Callie that, he's okay now, he's back on side. Then sticking up for David Jackson in the Actors Union, the stuff that he has to work with, it looks blatantly obvious that this is never going to be able to keep Gan in. The set that they've used and the machine that they've used to hold him in is not. It's not believable. So it must have been so difficult trying to remain still in something like that. But yeah, getting back to the storyline, it could have been so much better. I think they forgot at one point when they were doing this as well that they hadn't put Gan back. Gan, when he's let out by Callie, comes to attack Avon. Blake comes in. They manage to overpower Gan again. And then we move on to the next scene, which sees Blake and Avon on the deck of the Liberator. We then have this, oh crap, we forgot to put Gan. Where's Gan? So it almost as if they've edited this bit in of Gan now back under sedation. I didn't like that. I thought that could have been done so much better. I think they should have I'm not saying have him dragged back through the Liberator and taken back, but it was almost an afterthought the way that it fell in the episode. That, you know, all right, well, he is. You know, we need to explain that Gan is actually back here, otherwise everyone's going to be thinking, well, where is he? So I didn't like that. As often happens in Blake 7 episodes as well, I found it quite rushed as we got towards the end. You know, again, that was probably because they wasted so much time trying to get to XK72. So the rest of it had to be rushed, and we could have had so much more. As Lynn has said again, you know, that we could have had so much more about Avon. It was fascinating. Even, you know, I mean, Dave picked it up. You know, it was fascinating that, you know, the relationship between Blake and Avon, as we've seen, you know, is raveled and unraveled in this. But we now start to get a bit more of a clear idea of where these two characters are going. Villa as well was you know, played his part in this. You know, all of the characters have really knitted well in you know, the ones who we know will continue into the next series. But it was a mixed episode, and it could have been so much better. It really could have been so much better. It could have been so much better. You know, and of course, anyone who watched He-Man as a kid would know that the end of this episode was just like He-Man at the end. Welcome back. Oh dear me, it was so corny, awful end.
The Brady Bunch.
Brady Bunch. Well, He-Man for me. He-Man always used to end on a laugh. It was just disappointing. It's not the best episode of Blake 7 for me. And like, as I say, it could have been so much better. So, as always, we move on to the director and the direction. And this was a Vera Lorimer episode, Neil, which I found, I didn't realize that he had done this one. So it was, this is probably one of his worst.
One of his 12, and of course he produced series 4D, whatever you want to call it. I'm struggling to think, is it him or is it script or is it the writing? Because I think in terms of direction, it's probably okay. Maybe the first half an hour is a bit slow. But again, what does the writing say? How much, you know, the things that Lynn mentioned that could have been put in there, were they in there? They obviously weren't. So the writing and the script is what it is. It seems padded, that first half an hour, to be honest with you. I think, you know, the shots when you've got the dialogue between the characters are all good. It's all well done. I can't think of any specific scenes within it where I think that doesn't look good. And even the fighting bit between Blake and Gan is okay-ish for Blake 7. We've had some terrible fighting scenes. All right, it ain't great, and it's not going to make, you know, James Bond or something like that modern day. But it's better than what we've seen so far. Direction isn't my specific area of expertise, but I think he probably did okay with what he had to work with.
Okay, Nick.
I agree with Neil. Actually, it's difficult to tell whether it's a storyline, what's on the page affair, or is it the direction. And I think obviously Terry Nation's written all of these episodes, and different people have come in and directed them, so it's hard for them to pick up and perhaps keep the continuity going. But you've got, you know, the case of Callie, who sort of came in as a sort of Ulrika Meinhof type character, and by now she's developing into sort of Frank Spencer's wife Betty. It's such a complete slide off the scale. There's no continuity going on there at all. So that's a shame. And from a directional point of view, I don't know. He obviously gets to see what's being filmed and check it afterwards. And some of those opening scenes with Gan pushing his face, you just think, well, why did you let that go through? It's clearly awful.
I think it's still, yeah.
So that's a directional thing rather than a storyline thing. But generally, like Neil said there, the fight scenes compared to what we've had previously were okay. You know, they weren't brilliant, but they were certainly a step up on what we've seen before. So, you know, Mr. Lorimer did a pretty good job on that point of view, I would have said. Yeah.
Okay. Dave, direction of this episode from Vera Lorimer.
Yeah. The fight scenes I've noticed in the last couple of episodes are getting a bit cleverer, the fight scenes in terms of camera angles. So they're hiding a lot of the very bad physical aspects. You know, these actors can't do fight scenes. We've established that already, haven't we? But I've noticed in the last 2 or 3 episodes that the camera work's been better. So they have looked better than in the past. Direction on this, I've wrote down exactly what everybody said, really. You don't know whether to blame the director or the script. There's the usual plot holes in this. I mean, if it was shot in sequence, he should have had Gan killed off at the end of the episode and changed the show to Blake 6, because Gan's acting was just terrible. And as Nick said, why would he allow him? You know, why would he put scenes in that was so bad? You know, that once those have been shot, he should have said, like, do it again, or okay, let's kill him off at the end of the episode. You've got Avon going to the space station, and the first thing he does is he tells him his name's Avon, and they're supposed to be, you know, hiding the identities. Yeah. You would have thought a name like Avon would have rang a bell with somebody.
Oh yeah.
I could wait. And then you've got that doctor who is just, as somebody's already stole me thunder, he's walked in off a Carry On film. And it's like Leslie Phillips. He's channeling his inner Leslie Phillips and hello, ding dong. I mean, why would the director put up with that? I just don't know. You know, we're going to say Gan's dying. Let's go to speed standard +6. Speed standard +8 later on. That doesn't make any sense. I think the director should pick these things up. You know, you just get the impression it's nothing to do with the B word. You know, you just get the impression that either they don't care or these have been filmed very, very quickly, and they've just let everything go that I wouldn't expect the director to let go. There's the ending, as you say, that you know, like something from the Brady Bunch or He-Man. I don't know what that was, Steve. You watch a lot of strange programs. What else have I got? And then you've got the crew on the XK-72 at the end, who are about to be obliterated and don't do anything about it because they're waiting for instructions from the bridge. I mean, come on. So there's plot holes. How much of it is a script? How much is a director? I don't think it was. I'm going to blame the director for letting so much stuff go through and not picking some of these obvious things up. Bearing in mind, I only watched this about an hour ago. You know, I haven't seen this 2 or 3 times. If I was directing this and I didn't pick these things up, I would expect to get shot. But you know, and apart from that, it was very good.
All right, Lynn, direction. Lots of people, you know, agreeing with you really that the script could be the issue. Terry Nation may be running out of ideas, or you know, getting bored of writing. Blake 7 just wants the paycheck and for the actual idea amongst other people that do the work.
I think most of the direction pieces are covered already. I did have to look up which other ones Vera had directed because I was surprised about this one, and I reckon a good half of that list are in my favourites list. So I'm like, okay, this isn't one of those. Overall, to be honest, I was still too annoyed by all the different script and storyline pieces to pay much attention to the direction. Nothing jumped out particularly. From Gan, presumably in some of those rooms. Some of the consistency pieces again. I mean, Gan comes into the computer room where Avon is, fine, but he has to lunge all the way around the room to grab something very specific to destroy, which apparently are computer linkages, which if he breaks them, we won't be able to fix. So he breaks them, and apparently we fix stuff later. It's the sort of thing you were talking about, Dave. Surely you can pick this up in direction. Maybe it was rushed, maybe it was out of sequence. I also didn't understand. We're going to come on to effects, I know that, but the restraints and so on. When they switch the restraints on, apparently the noise, and why does Gan's arm just come up like this? What's that doing? I don't know.
And then the noise goes away, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's the grippy thing, but there's also when they switch it on, his arm just kind of comes up like it's in some kind of field. I don't know.
The Frankenstein effect I was referring to, you see.
just
That's got to be direction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hasn't the director got to be saying, "I want you to do something"?
Is that not the magnetic fields that Lynn was worried about earlier on in our chat?
You see, it would make more sense if they were in the medical bay than outside in space. I'm not letting this one go. If they'd had a black hole or something, but then they couldn't have flown all the way through it, I'll stop. But anyway, it's not.
No, you won't.
Lynn's very close.
Yeah, I don't have any more on direction, to be perfectly honest.
I think what they should have done is they should have, on the Liberator, should have had a specific robot to be able to do medical work.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
And I think,
Here's your
I think if this robot had been employed by Blake 7, it could have been called Blake's 8, and everything would have been great. And it would have been able to do everything. Gan wouldn't have ended up looking like this. Gan would have been like this all of the time. Yeah, I definitely think there was space for that robot on there. Direction. The fight scenes were slightly better, but they were still poor. I know I'm judging them by modern day standards, but I think the problem with the fight scenes in this episode was that it showed up the Liberator for what it really is. We saw wooden stairs on the Liberator on one of these fight scenes. Badly joined wooden stairs at that. It's one of those things you're looking at it and thinking, oh my God, that could have been edited out. The reliability we've spoken about of the Liberator as a whole, we know it's not a real spaceship, but the way that it moves and rattles around and stuff like that is horrendous. When we're going through turbulence, it's little things like that I think, it shatters that kind of believability, and that is down to the director. The director is the man who ultimately has those kind of final decisions as to whether he thinks something works or not. I've already highlighted that the bed that Gan's lying on doesn't look fit for purpose, and and the fact that, again, that I just think there was an afterthought by somebody that realized when they got halfway through, and they used to film a lot of these things in sequence. A lot of this was studio based. I would imagine this was all pretty much in order when they were filming it. That I just think they forgot about Gan the second time round and had to go and shoot that scene of him being, he's back in the sick bay and he's back restrained. I just think that was a bit cringeworthy. I think again, just too much time being wasted again on the on getting through the vortex and getting through the getting to the station and getting that help. It ruined the episode. But yeah, not a great deal more I can add on that. But the fight scenes, I wasn't too over endeared with them. Again, slightly better, but could do better is what I would say with them. Okay, special effects. God, we were blown away with these. Lynn, I'm going to let you go first on the special effects.
Okay.
Yeah, because you sit patiently and then everybody steals your thunder. So I'm going to allow you to go first on this one. So the special effects, we were overloaded with special effects, gadgets, scenery, like new parts of the Liberator, different bases. I mean, fill your boots with this one.
Where to start? Exactly. I've picked out some bits, but the first thing I wrote was, God, the diagnostic equipment. What is happening there? So apart from anything, I mean, they've had, you're right, they've had a great time, the effects guys. They've got to build a whole big medical room with all the stuff. They've got a computer room. They've had a ball. But that, okay, you could tell, I'm thinking it's 1978, we're building lots of medical things. That pink scanner thing,
lollipop,
exactly what I said was, it's like someone dropped a sweet shop on a sticky plate. They just dropped a whole load of these things, and then I didn't, they had lots of scope to build it, but that kind of thing stuck out. Slightly separately, when have they become diagnostic experts, by the way? I know it's not quite the effects.
Everybody was
over it.
Everybody was a diagnostic expert.
Yeah, they've got this scanner, that scanner, a Voré scanner, whatever the hell that is. All of those things they seem to be used to using. okay. So yeah, diagnostic equipment, odd, plain odd. I don't know, even in 1978, whether that would have been particularly fun. I do like XK-72 as a space station. I really like the way that looks. I did hear someone describe it as a balloon animal once, and I can't quite unsee that, but I still like the space station. What else do we have? Say again?
I'm asking Steve to put a picture up.
I don't have it at the moment.
Haven't got it. So I think, we have lots of opportunity for them to build things. They obviously had a great time. But the space station I loved. The diagnostic equipment just, again, got in the way. There are some doors. I'll leave those to Dave. Those are my top ones. I'm happy to stop there and let someone else carry on with the rest.
Okay, Dave.
Yes, special effects and costumes. Quite frustrating this, because the first shot of the Liberator in space at the beginning was possibly the best thing I've seen on Blake 7 yet. Do you remember the very first scene? You've got the sun in the background and the planet, and it was lit well, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. And the second shot was really good. And then for the rest of the episode, they revert back to form where they've got that, blank canvas behind it with a million little stars on it. And
we also had the animation twice.
The animation, that's
so you had this excellent special effect at the beginning, which they could have just shot from different angles. And then you go back to this cardboard thing at the back with all these planets. I mean, these keep popping up. 16 or 17 planets on the screen, and then you never see them again. And then when you're looking at the through the window, so to speak, it's deep space. But so excellent special effects at the beginning, outside of the Liberator, and then crappy ones later on. So that's frustrating, isn't it? That's nothing to do with the B word. It's something they could have fixed. What else have I got? Garn, when he throws Jenna to the floor, I thought that was a pretty good doll. I watched it 3 times, and it was pretty good in live action. So I'm going to give them points for that. What I've continued to find amusing for the whole episode is that everybody's pretending that they're doing brain surgery on Garn, and they've got that's it. They've got the needles going in either side, and then the next shot is they're soldering a bit of motherboard, and the limiter's just stuck to the back of his head all the time. I don't understand it. The limiter's stuck to the back of his hair. The soldering a motherboard, which has obviously come out of somebody's calculator. Speaking of calculators, hey, there's our friend. When Blake's talking to Jen and asking questions, and she's got this handheld thing and a pen in her hand, and he says, "So how long would it take us to get to?" And she just 2 clicks and gives him an answer. What's she pressing to answer such a complex question? 2 clicks and she gets an answer.
Google Space Maps.
Hey,
Google Space Maps.
Well, yes, ahead of its time. The map, that's another thing. When they're looking at the map, the glass map, and the camera's shot through the map, and everything is printed on the map, so it's not a visual display that changes. How big is this glass wall? Have they got the whole universe on it? It must go right around the ship. It had 3 things on it, and it was like, and I thought, Christ, that must be a hell of a bit. I wouldn't mind the window cleaner's job for doing that. What else have I got? And I've had some good positives there so far as well. With the criticisms of the motherboard, the glass map. The vortex, when they went through the vortex, I thought that was very good, where everything was distorted. The bit after that.
What is it, though, Dave? What is it, really?
What's that there?
Yeah.
Well, I couldn't tell you, but it's a family program, so I'll just leave it to people's imagination. But after that, when everything gets distorted, the faces get distorted. I thought that was quite good. It might have been an accident, I don't know. Maybe it was something to do with the focus of the camera, I don't know. But I'll give them credit for that. And as Lynn said, loads of stupid, silly tools which are unnecessary. The lollipop, and why are they scanning his arm? The last thing they scan is his bloody head. Now, the notes is limited. Why are they scanning his hands? So there's that. And then poor Airborne's got these electric toothbrushes that he's poking into things that he has every week.
Every time. Yeah.
Oh, that's annoying. What else have I got? Something else. Yes, the visualizer, the radar screen that Villa's looking at, and he says to Blake, I can't tell what it is. I can tell you, it's a guy underneath with a torch. I mean, it's just a little flashy light. What's it supposed to be? I don't know. Costumes, well, you can see what I think of the costumes, you know. Great.
Well, you've made a good effort. Is that masking tape?
I thought it was just a sort of leftover Newcastle kit he's got on.
Do you know what? I can't get it off. I can't get it off.
He's put masking tape on the top. Fantastic.
You know? Oh, this is good.
It's Adamant.
He's a bit Series D, actually.
Yeah, it's a bit Series D.
So your favourite?
Not enough studs.
Your favourite costume was Avon.
No, this is the Doctor's costumes, isn't it?
Doctor's costume.
From the pay attention, Steve. Have you not watched it? It's from the.
I was thinking it was this.
No, it's from the space station.
All right.
Nice to see that Jenna had 2 costumes in this episode. A shame we didn't get her to see the costume changes. But never mind. 2 costumes for Jenna. Very good. What else have I got? Visualizer I've mentioned. I think that's it for special effects. So some good effects and some unnecessary rubbish, which is the way this seems to be going up to episode 10, you know.
Okay. Lynn, costumes. We didn't get a chance to ask you about the costumes. I did find the ship, though. There you go.
Oh, there we go. You see? No, it's good. I like it. Costumes. Yes, we talked about good and bad. In actual fact, this is the first time that someone scores on both of those. So Jenna went from the pink petals, which we've talked about before, don't like, to the space pirate black, we do like. So from that point of view, I think we went from bad to good with the same character. The XK72 kind of gear, again, it was consistent. It was, different color coded per, I suppose, function, if you like. Okay, found them a bit silly, but good 70s polar necks. That's what I will say.
strong polar necks there.
Strong
work there. Exactly.
Okay, good stuff, Nick. Coming to you now on your special effects and costumes.
Okay, best ones I thought was the a bit like what Lynn said, actually, the model work. I like the XK72, though now she said that about the balloon animals, I can't quite get that out of my head as well.
I had to share.
And I also thought the pursuit ships looked really good.
Yeah.
However, for me the worst special effects was actually seeing those pursuit ships chasing or heading towards XK72 to ambush the Liberator. I thought that just looked, whilst the model work was great, the effect of them flying was less so. I thought, but yeah, the model work itself was really good. Whether that's a special, I suppose it is a special effect, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not effect.
Costumes, there was not particularly stood out to me at all, really. I think the medical guys on XK72, as somebody just said then, was they look decent. And Jenna did look nice, I thought, but there wasn't anything particularly amazing, I didn't think, this week, costume-wise.
Okay. Neil?
Special effects, best ones are going to go to the modelling, the model shots. So the model shots of the Liberator, and there's one lovely one where there isn't planets and there's just in space with stars, and then that one always looks really, really good. And then offset by the use of that damn animation again. I mean, if you've got these stock shots, why use that? It's so bad, it's not really true. XK72, but despite being a number of screwdrivers stuck together, I think, or something like that, it does actually work, and you got them, and it looks really good when the Liberator comes up to it. I think that's quite good for the time, to be honest. So they're the best for me. The graphics are the worst. The meteor storm at the start is a bit iffy. What's that all about? But the worst special effect for me is the chip on Gan's head. I mean, he just always looks terrible. He's just got a bit of a calculator stuck in the middle of his head. What is that? Oh, and we did have a little bit, did we not mention yet? Carly listening to some headphones.
Yes,
the
the headphones.
conversations that are going on in the flight deck. So one thing I didn't know is that they can have these headphones everywhere just to listen to whatever anyone else is up to, really. But yeah, that's just looks terrible as well, to be fair. And next thing, I'm not sure that the pursuit ships chasing at the end, I'm not sure that they're actual models because they just move in one block. They look a bit like what you get in jumping on a bit in Series D. You get that a bit with the pursuit ships. I don't know what they are, but they didn't look good either.
Did you not think they looked like Thunderbird 3 a little bit?
Maybe.
Seriously, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And costume-wise, I'm going to go with everyone else. Jenna's black costume's the best. Second is Callie's green number, but I'm not going to go into that. And the worst is Jenna's petals. So.
Okay, yeah. I mean, we had a whole host of special effects in this, set and special effects. Lots to digest. Look, great effort on XK72. To be fair, something a bit different, and very, again back in that time. That was, mind blowing to see that. And I remember just being blown away as a kid by all these buttons and stuff that they were pressing, and the fact that, that the crew knew, what to do and how to sort Gan out. Bearing in mind they'd only known him 10 episodes, they seem to know everything that was possible to do. And the pink thing was ridiculous. In fact, that whole thing where they're asking, somebody, was it Avon holding that thing around his head and moving it around, and
it was just moving around. Yeah,
it was crazy, wasn't it? It was ridiculous, and again they dragged that on, and this bit as well. This stood out to me is absolutely ludicrous, as Dave's rightly pointed out. Going in with two syringes or two screwdrivers, take your pick, and then on the screen it was like a soldering iron. It was. None of it was believable, but back in the day, as a 10-year-old lad, it was fantastic. This was good. Some of the visuals that they used were great, but again, the big screen was absolutely crazy. They were going for arty shots, weren't they? They were going for something a bit different, and maybe they achieved it with some things and didn't with others. Costume, I'm going to surprise you. I like Villa's, a mishmash of it. A mishmash of everything. I just think it was just typical Villa. So I'm going to go for Villa's costume on this one. Everybody else's were pretty much the same. Yeah, Jenna got changed, which I know has gone down well with everybody. But I'm going to go for Villa's. He's like a court jester.
Yeah.
A court jester, and that probably suits his character.
Steve,
yeah.
Steve, do you remember a men's clothing store called Greenwood's?
Yes.
Well, do they not look like they're all fitted out from Greenwood's?
They possibly are. Was Greenwood's a thing back in the 70s?
Oh, very much so.
Well, maybe that's where they got the costume.
My mate used to work for him.
Good stuff. Okay, coming towards the end of the podcast, over 150 watching. So thanks very much. Please subscribe to The Word on Blake 7 on YouTube.
Not on the telly.
If you're enjoying the show, get it on the telly. Best actor and worst actor. That's where we're at now. Of course, not a cast of thousands, Blake 7, for many of these episodes. But in this one, we had Kane, Julian Glover, Farron, Ian Thompson, and Renault, Christian Roberts. So, Neil.
Okay. Best actor for me in this episode is between two, but I thought Michael Keaton does a really good job. He's really starting to get into Villa now, delivering them sharp, sarcastic lines. If you live that long, I've just had a comforting thought. We may all be dead before we find out what the danger zone is, etc., etc. His cynical side is really coming through, and he's really good at portraying this risk aversion thing that Villa has, and he can always see the risk that's there when the others don't seem to be able to. And he also threw in a bit of heroism at the end when he holds Kane to gunpoint to make him undertake the surgery. So I think Michael Keaton had a good range in this episode and was able to actually get really into the character of Villa and show a good few sides to him. And Julian Glover does a brilliant job, doesn't he? Plays it so straight. portrays the arrogance of this greatest surgeon you've ever seen, as he describes himself perfectly, I think. And that constant marveling at his own hands, showing the traits of a, I don't know, self-important narcissist, or he's got a bit of God syndrome going on, haven't he, this guy? So he's really good as well. So it's a toss-up between them two for me for the best actors. I'm just gonna go with Michael Keaton because I think he's really getting to grips with Villa, but it's a just. Worst actor is between two. Christian Roberts as Reno, which when they first seen it sounds like renal. When they say it, it's first, is hello, hello, and then he follows this with hello. This place is full of pretty girls. I mean, goodness me, please make it stop, someone. It's just dreadful. But David Jackson, I'm sorry, he's a major part of the cast, and that's what we've got. It's meant to be a big episode for Gan, and admittedly, he doesn't get that many lines, and he's unconscious, as Lynn said, for most of it. But I think what he does get to deliver doesn't deliver that well, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go with, for the same reason I went with Michael Keaton because he's part of the main cast to be the best. I'm gonna go with David Jackson as the worst because he's meant to be part of the main cast, and it's just not pretty, is it?
No. Definitely not. Nick?
Best actor, Julian Glover as Kane for me, which I gave his wife best actor the other episode as well. He's married to Isla Blair. She had the see-through dress a couple of episodes back. But yeah, I thought Julian Glover was really good. You haven't got a picture of Eve, Steve, have you? No, oh dear. So yeah, I thought his portrayal of Kane was quite similar to his portrayal of Count Scarlione in Doctor Who around that same sort of period. Maybe Doctor Who was a bit slightly later. And he sort of did a really good job of showing the slim line between genius and psychopath once he's killed Ferrer and he's just staring at his own hands.
Nice. Yeah.
That was really good. Worst actor it's got to be David Jackson as Gan. He was largely awful. I think he did have one good bit where just after that picture, the previous picture where he's lying on his bed and he's convincing Callie to let him up, and he ends up trying to strangle her. I thought that was quite a good portrayal of a psycho. But his earlier bits were just awful. Renault was, I think it was more the script than his portrayal. I thought he was pretty bad, but I think that he was just doing what was on the page for Marine. So I don't think it was quite so much his fault. So David Jackson worst, Julian Glover best.
Okay, Dave.
Best actor, Avon. I thought the storyline had focused on his struggles with Blake and realization he's better off where he is. It would have been a better episode, so I've got him down as the best actor. The worst actor is obviously Gan, and it reminds you to be careful what you wish for. I remember seeing a couple of episodes back, this guy's not got anything to do. Is he going to get something to do? By God, I wish I kept my mouth shut. I thought it was pretty bad. Special mention for is it Callie? Callie?
Callie, yeah.
John Chaplin,
other people have already mentioned this, but what they've done with that character since she was first introduced, and she's just quite pathetic when she runs up to Blake and she says, "He's escaped." And I just thought of Mavis from Coronation Street, But yeah, Gan was the worst. Avon was the best for me.
Okay, Lynn.
I'll keep it quick. Julian Glover, top. David Jackson.
Okay.
Not good.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. David Jackson is clearly the worst actor in this, sadly. When it was his episode as well, it should have all been about him, and he should have really been able to nail it. So maybe this is the straw that breaks the camel's back for him. Could have been any one of three: Glover, Darrow, or Keaton in this one. I'm going to give it to Paul Darrow. Paul Darrow in this one for me as best actor. I think he was great in this, and Glover as guest actor, Darrow is regular. But that takes us to the best line of the show in the script, one which we always end up scrambling over because sometimes there's only one obvious one. There's a few in this one, but we will give it. We'll give it. We're going to go to Nick on this one first. Nick, you can have first go at this.
Okay. Well, I don't know if it's an obvious one or not, but the little interaction between Avon and Blake, where Avon says, "I'm finished. Staying with you requires a degree of stupidity of which I'm no longer capable." And Blake's retort is, "Now you're just being modest."
Yeah,
that was the best one for me.
Okay, Dave.
Well, I had that one, but again, learning from Lynn, I picked a few more. So I had that one first. I always like to hear Zen say the status is firm, which he said again in this episode. You can't get enough of that. A firm status. Steady on. Avon's line, one of the many faces of neutrality, which I thought was very telling. So that's any one of those three. And of course, there was a worse line in this, which was gone.
Okay, Lynn.
So obviously Nick's taken the best one, in my opinion. However, I have another. So Jenna, when Renor is I'm going, I do love girls with a sense of humor, and she just twitches an eyebrow and says, "Yes, I can see where that would be an advantage." Yeah. Boy, did I laugh. That was good.
That was the second one I had written.
It appears that it seems to be Sally's used to delivering such rebuffs.
Oh, yes. And she does it very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Neil?
Okay, I had quite a few written down, to be honest, but I'm not going to go through them all. 3 of them have been covered here already. But I really loved the delivery at the end that Blake gave when Kane asked, "What are you going to do if I don't operate?" And he just went, "I will destroy your hands." And walked off. Because he knows, he knows that's all the hand. That's what I'm gonna do, and he just wanders out the door.
And Avon was impressed with that, wasn't he? Avon.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah,
well impressed. Yeah.
Mine is just that lovely exchange on the Liberator deck when they're talking about obviously XK72, and Jenna says, "How do you know all this?" And Avon says, "I looked it up in the data banks. It was information I thought might prove useful to me." Villa goes, "A bull tool, somewhere to run if things get too hot here." And Avon says, "The thought had crossed my mind." Fantastic. It just that little exchange is really good, and obviously Villa getting his little line in as well about saying goodbye to one bolt hole. It's just that building of the characters, building of that kind of thing that we're going to see develop over the course of Blake 7. Okay, end of the show. Marks out of 10 for Breakdown. I will give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's the lowest mark I've given to an episode so far. Neil?
There's more good than bad, just about. So it's a 6 from me as well.
Okay, Nick?
I'm going to sound like I'm copying here, but 6 was my score to do.
David?
I'm going to give it a 5. It was a missed opportunity. They should have focused on the Avon storyline a bit more, so I'm giving it a 5.
Okay, and Lynn?
Yeah, 6. Same thing. It matches my lowest to date, which seemed fair when I look back.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you. 163 of you watching live. Please subscribe to the channel, The Word on Blake 7. We will be back in a few weeks' time for a bit of chocolate bounty. Take care. See you on the other side.
Cheers, guys.
The word. Switch the bracelet on the word. The word. Switch the bracelet on the word. The word. Switch the bracelet on the word.